A lot of people are too sick to really truly pursue a spiritual path. You can do the work, but the work doesn't produce results because you're biologically corrupted. When you fix your biology, when you meditate, the meditation works better. You want to have a direct connection to the divine, it probably requires extra electricity from your mitochondria to do that, doesn't it? My experience has been, I've always pursued a spiritual path. I was one class away from a minor in religious studies in my undergrad. And I've did ayahuasca in Peru in 1999. I went down there and asked about it, and they said, "You're white." And I said, "Yeah, I noticed." And they said, "No, it's for local people. You'll throw up. It's not fun." I said, "I'm not looking for fun." And now it's a tourist industry, and I think ayahuasca is greatly misused, and it's something I'd be very cautious with. I've traveled to Nepal and Tibet and meditated a long time ago and learned meditation from the masters. I've studied from different lineages. I've done shamanic training. I've trained in traditional Chinese energetic techniques. And the reason I've done all this is I run we'll call it a spiritual tech school, 40 years of Zen in Seattle. Vishen's written about it in both of his books. It was a transformative experience for him. I teach people the science of forgiveness. And it matters because most people think, oh, say you're sorry to your little brother. That's not forgiveness. That's saying you're sorry. You don't have to mean it. What forgiveness is a change of state of your biology so that you're no longer reactionary. And it doesn't mean you change what you think about a situation. It means you change how your body automatically feels about a situation. So when someone does forgiveness work, they can say, here's something that happened to me that was absolutely tragic, and it was really painful. And they can look at you and they're at peace. And if you were to hook electrodes up to them, which I do, you would see that they were at peace. They were experiencing joy and happiness. They didn't lose their state. And when you talk to someone who needs to do forgiveness work, oftentimes even on themselves, they're like, well, something really bad happened to me, and I'm going to tell you about it. Okay, oftentimes that can turn into victim porn. You ever seen that?
Very often.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Where the media jumps in like, oh my gosh, look at all this pain and suffering. Now I'll get some eyeballs. You want to be the person who sits there and says, I've had good times, I've had bad times, but I learned how to let go. I learned the most precious part of biohacking of all, the biggest goal of all, is I am in charge of my state no matter what's happening in the world around me. It means I can make my body warm or cold. I can be hungry or not hungry. I can have desire, I can not have desire. And something can happen that I enjoy or I don't enjoy, and I don't lose my state. And that means your capacity for service to yourself and to others is unlimited. And if instead you're sitting around going, my metabolism doesn't work, I don't have enough energy in my brain to even catch myself yelling at my kids, then you yell at your kids and go, God, I must be a bad person because I yelled at my kids. By the way, I've yelled at my kids. It happens. But the better you are at being present, the better potential you have to be a profoundly good person. And when you don't have forgiveness, it's very hard to be present. Since I measure people's brainwaves, and I've done this for 1,500 people, I've spent 6 months of my life with the electrodes glued to my head, developing 40 years of Zen. And it's been transformative. And it's allowed me to weather all kinds of entrepreneurial wins and failures and big life changes and all sorts of other things. And, be relatively happy most of the time. I'm not saying I don't experience pain. Of course I do. But it doesn't leave trauma. So ultimately, forgiveness is a tool to turn off trauma. And you can say, Dave, I thought biohacking was the easy path. No, biohacking is the most efficient path. And we're happy to use tools to be more efficient than you can do without tools, which is a big difference between, some traditions. So what would you do if you really wanted to be powerful? Well, the first step would be do a better job of making energy, because having more energy would be helpful for being powerful. Mm-hmm. And the second thing you'd want to do is you'd want to say, where am I wasting energy? if you're wasting energy thinking about what's for lunch all the time, you should probably address that. In fact, in one of my books, about a third of people's thoughts are about food.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Like literally, how many times is that popping into your head? I don't think about food unless I haven't had it for a couple of days. It's amazing to be free of that as a former, like very, very hungry, eat 6 times a day, obese person. But after that, someone says something that's mildly critical in a meeting and you can't sleep all night and you're losing your mind over it, right? Or someone cuts you off in traffic and you're riled up all day. Maybe you should stop wasting energy on that so you can use that energy to make testosterone or to fold proteins better or to figure out an act of kindness or do something that's valuable. And this is why forgiveness work is fundamental to biohacking. It's because you're wasting energy that you could have put towards improving yourself or others, and you're just doing it on punching yourself in the face. Holding a grudge is really expensive. You don't have to do it. The thing that's really, really frustrating, though, you're not going to know you're holding a grudge. They're invisible because grudges feel like reality, right? Person cuts you off in traffic. It feels like this. You know, they made you angry. They don't respect you. The real story is they cut you off in traffic because they were on the way to the hospital. You don't know. Like, there is no real story unless you were inside the guy's brain and asked him, you know, what was going on. So it's all made up. So the path of biohackers, once they get their basic energy back, if they're doing this kind of work, it's like, first, maybe I could develop empathy for other people. And this starts to sound a lot like Buddhism, and there are elements of all world things in all personal development. So the first thing is empathy. I can feel other people's pain, right? This is good. So you're at the gym and someone's lifting wrong and you, hey man, that's going to your elbow. Let me help you out. Like, we're nice. Problem with empathy is if you have empathy and you're looking around, you're disabled. Because there's a lot of suffering in the world. By the way, there's less suffering now on average than there has been in all of history. If you look at the whole world, there's a lot of people in poverty and all that stuff. There's also really bad stuff happening in Switzerland, and there's people who are actively plotting to take away your currency and your rights and all that kind of stuff. That used to be a conspiracy theory. Now it's just obvious. But, okay, you could be all worried about that stuff, or you could say, all right, I'm going to step out of empathy and into compassion. And compassion is interesting because you don't have to feel everyone's pain. You can automatically, without having to do anything, just wish well for others. So now you see someone in pain, you go, I hope that person's okay. And you can choose to help the person or to not help the person based on what's right to do in that situation, but you don't have to feel their pain all day. So compassion is greater than empathy. But the greatest state is equanimity, which is the ability to control your state no matter what's happening in the world around you. And biohacking can take you there. And there's another word for equanimity that is used in Buddhism, and it's actually enlightenment. And people who take Buddhist vows are vowing to hold off from full enlightenment until they've brought everyone else along with them, which is a very strong spiritual path. The kind of equanimity I'm talking about, maybe it's the same as enlightenment. I don't think I'm enlightened, so how would I know? But what I'm talking about is the ability to stay in the absolute highest spiritual state you've ever experienced all the time. And that is an absolute goal of biohacking. Unless your goal is to be a balloon animal. In which case, do that. It's your life. You can do anything you want. I just want you to have tools that work. And if you want to be present all the time, you're going to do forgiveness work. And if you want to figure out how to measure presence, let's have a conversation about neuroscience, because I do that. And I can show you over and over forgiveness work done through the reset process that's in the book, the one that Vishen talks about in his books as well, the one from 40 Years of Zen. It makes people more present because it stops your brain from ruminating and worrying about things that are no longer necessary.